Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Music Den. I am your host Armando Venditti, and in this episode of the Music Den, I'm starting I guess you'd say, a new series. It's in three parts, and the name of this series is Where Are They Now? Now, the idea for this came from a bus driver here in Edmonton by the name of Laurie Hudson. We were chatting last week as I was going to an appointment, and we were chatting about ideas for the channel. And she said to me, you should cover female Canadian artists that are basically underrated. And I like the idea. She gave me three names. Actually, I came up with one. But the first one that I will cover today is, in my estimation, in my very humble opinion, one of the best Canadian female singers around. And I do not say that lightly. Her name is Lisa Dalbello. Now, Lisa Dalbello grew up in Western Ontario, was born May 22nd, 1959. She and her family moved to Vaughan, Ontario when she was a child, and she grew up there. She was basically was always been into singing, always loved to sing, and from a very young age started to write her own music. And she signed her first recording deal in 1976 with MCA Records out of LA. And her debut album, just titled Lisa Dalbello, was released in 1977. It was produced by none other than David Foster and featured members of Toto prior to them getting a recording deal with Columbia and releasing their debut album in 1978. Now, I have a Japanese import copy on CD of Lisa Dalbello's debut. And in terms of musical genre, it's very much funk, soul, R&B based. Um, very different from what she would record later in her career. Um, the album came out, and she, I would believe it, did believe it didn't do much. She was to go to the 1978 Juno Awards, but her record company basically told her, "Yeah, we're going to give you tickets to another artist. We'll talk to you soon." She was then dropped from MCA, and I can only imagine that, recording your first album and being dropped by your record company after one album is quite disheartening. So, but excuse me, but she persevered. Sorry, something in my water right now, and she recorded her second album called Pretty Girls, which was, she wrote all the songs for the album, and the co-wrote or wrote herself. Um, and it was released independently through Talisman Records. I have the vinyl copy, and it continues more or less her R&B, soul, disco kind of vibe. Again, it didn't do well. Um, I mean, the title track got some airplay, and the album featured people like Michael McDonald on background vocals. So she was making inroads into the industry. People knew who she was, and she gained the respect of a lot of musicians in the LA area. 3 years passed, and she signed a new recording deal with Capitol Records. She released her 1981 album called Drastic Measures, produced by Bob Esty and Jim Valance. She worked with people like Brian Adams has 3 songwriting credits on the album. She worked with Jim Valance on some songs. Um, Tim Thorney, I believe, Thorney, yes. And it really didn't go much of anywhere, unfortunately. She took time off after Drastic Measures to reassess her career, her personal life, what she wanted to do musically. She always wanted to record, but she thought that maybe it was time to, uh, I guess you could say, shake things up a little bit. And boy, did she ever. Um, in the interim between Drastic Measures and her release in '84, which I will get to, she recorded the theme song for an NBC TV movie called The Eyes of Dorian Gray. And I've seen the movie. It's quite interesting. It's quite good, actually. She did the theme song for that. She, at that point, hooked up with one Mick Ronson. Everyone knows out there who, in the rock field, knows who Mick Ronson is. Worked with David Bowie predominantly. Went on to produce albums for Morrissey, etc. Fantastic guitarist, classically trained artist. He saw a Canadian documentary that was on the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation and on Lisa Dalbello, and he contacted her and wanted to work with her. So when the two met, they just got on like basically like the best of friends, and they started to record music together. Now, the album that would be the result of this recording is from 1984 called Human Forces. As you can tell from the album cover, it's quite the statement to make. This album has 9 tracks, and the instrumentation is split up between Dalbello and Mick Ronson. Dalbello is on drums, keyboards, bass, and Ronson is on guitars, keyboards, and I would imagine bass. The album marked a hell of a departure for her. Stylistically, everything just basically she left her past behind her with regards to previous albums. So now, Human Forces marked a much more edgier sound for her, much more, I don't want to say avant-garde, but a heavier, edgier sound, heavier drums. Her vocal prowess on this album runs the gamut. She can be very emotional with a vocal, very quiet, but then she can also kick you in the gut with a ear-piercing shriek, melodical, but it's still a shriek, and deliver it with such passion that I was knocked out cold, practically. The album threw me for a loop. The lead-off single was Going to Get Close to You, and that track has been covered by groups such as, most notably, Queensryche for their album Rage to Order from 1986. And they do a fantastic job on it. But I prefer the original, obviously. Other tracks of note on Human Forces are Path of Least Resistance, Target, I've Got My Eyes on You, which is the last track on the album, Animal, which features, Carol Pope from the group Rough Trade on co-lead vocals. They basically trade off vocals on this track. Other tracks on there are Devious Nature, Path of Least Resistance, Cardinal Sin, Wait for an Answer, which was covered by Heart on the Bad Animals album in 87. The subject matter on this album uh, basically is one person's take on the perception of their role in society, specifically women. What is expected of you? Um, what society expects of you to be as a woman in society, whether it be a wife, a subservient wife, um, a strong businesswoman, um, and whether or not you'll take it. You have the choice to either bend to another person's will or push along and create your own path and do whatever the hell you want to do with your life. You know, and other songs like Cardinal Sin talks about the Catholic Church and the roles of religion, and should they have a role in your life, and should they be a dominating force in your life, and should you believe everything that you're told with regards to religion. So the the album, even though it was done in 84, it's still relevant today. I mean, yes, the production could be viewed as dated, but you know what? Who gives a shit? For me, pardon my language, but for me, this is a fantastic piece of work. And when she came out with this album, she stormed the gates. Nobody expected this from Dalbello. Nobody. And as I listened to it more and more over the years, I have various copies. I love it every time I listen to it. I do not get tired of this album. I can't sing, but I'm there screaming my bloody head off with every track, whether I hit the notes or not. I don't care. It's my house. I do what I want. But this album was phenomenal. A 3-year gap ensued after this album. And well, in 1986, she and Mick Ronson, Dalbello and Mick Ronson began discussing working on another album because they liked what they did in the first one together, and they wanted to continue. Unfortunately, Capitol Records and her manager at the time, Roger Davies, who was managed people like Pink, Tina Turner, but to name a few, didn't want her working with Ronson because apparently he showed up intoxicated to a meeting um, for Capitol Records. They wanted him to produce an album for Tina Turner, and apparently he showed up intoxicated. So they did not want the two of them working together again. Dalbello forged on. She wrote demos and she presented them, and the record company and management together dismissed them because they wanted her to work with a quote unquote real producer, which pissed her off to no end. They teamed her up with Rupert Hine, who at that point had worked with groups like Saga. He would go on to work with Rush for Presto. He also worked with Stevie Nicks. He also worked with another Canadian band called 8 Seconds, who had a hit in 1986 called Kiss You When It's Dangerous through Polydor Records. But I digress. She did not like these songs that were done with Rupert Hine. The album was then shelved. She wrote more demos and presented the demos and said she was working with a co-producer by the name of Bill DeSalio. And this album would eventually become She. Now, She was released in 1987. Leading up to the album being given into the record company, she let her A&R guy from Capitol, Dean Cameron, know of Bill DeSalio's untimely demise or premature demise. When they realized that it was actually Dalbello that worked on this album all on her own, God forbid a woman should be able to do whatever the hell she wants to do. They started to him and haw and say, well, we're not sure, what if we need to maybe think about this some more. She was undaunted by this. She pushed ahead. They released the album because they couldn't really go back again and do it over. The album was released, and the lead single was Tango, featuring Bernard Edwards on bass. Great album. Great album. It's a 10-track album. Other songs of note on that album are Black on Black, the lead-off track, Baby Doll, Talk to Me, Danger, Danger, Immaculate Eyes, which features David Gilmour of Pink Floyd on guitar, Body and Soul, Imagination, and Why Stand Alone. I believe I named all the tracks on that album. There's one track skips my mind right now. It's the last track on side one. But this album was considered more of, by some, which I don't hear it, but more of it's more of a pop album, more of a softer sound. I don't hear it, because if you hear songs like Black on Black, which basically talks about the Catholic Church and, the misconceptions of the Catholic Church and sin and perceived sin, it's not a lighter album at all. And if you want to hear this album live, there is a concert that's available on YouTube. It's called Dalbello Live at the Diamond Club in Toronto in 1987. It's about an hour long, and it showcases the album She, and she is brilliant in this. I don't know if you can tell by now, but I do love me some Lisa Dalbello. So after the album She, there's a how many years? There's a 7-year gap or 6-year gap between She and her next album, which was called Whore. Now, Whore came out in 1986. What happened was her manager in 1996, sorry, her manager at the time in 1994, Roger Davies, asked her if she wanted to do another album. She wanted to. She was living in LA at the time. And during that time frame, she worked with people like Brandon Marsalis. She worked with, my goodness, Nena, 99 Luft Balloons. People of that ilk. She even worked with Patti LaBelle on one of her albums. So when Roger Davies in 1994 asked her if she wanted to record another album, a deal was signed with EMI Electrola in Germany and EMI Spin in North America. The album came out again in 1996. It's a much harder album, very guitar driven, very bass driven, heavy drums. It was produced by Dalbello and her brother Stefano. And it features songs, well, first of all, the lead single was 11, which is a very moody, keyboard oriented piece. Fantastic track. And her vocals on it, on the intro, are very haunting for me. But it does kick ass in the end. It really does. Other notable tracks are Heavy Boots, Easy, the talent track Whore, which was based on a poem that she wrote. And what else? Oh Little Boy, Falling Down. There's the final track on the album, which is called The Revenge of Sleeping Beauty. That is a 6-minute plus opus. That is, for me, the heaviest piece of music on the album, featuring Tommy Lee of Motley Crue on drums. And she delivers on that track along with the rest of the album. Excuse me. A quick sip of water. My apologies. The album came out, and the singles 11 and Heavy Boots were released as singles, and Little Boy was released, sorry, as the third single. There were different remixes released for each single, but I don't believe that she ever regained the popularity that she did with the album Human Forces, unfortunately. And she did other guest spots too. I mean, she's worked with artists such as Canadian artists such as Glass Tiger on their album The Thin Red Line. She has worked with Alex Lifeson from Rush. He had a project called Victor, which they released one album self-titled, and she provides lead vocals on a track called Start Today, which is amazing. I cannot say enough what a powerhouse this woman is. Some people like her, some people may not, but to me, she is a fantastic artist and a very underrated artist. She has not recorded an album since Whore from 1996, which is very unfortunate. She has done other work. She has done voiceover work for commercials. She has done commercial jingles for restaurants like The Keg and things of that nature to keep her working and keep her in the spotlight. But she has not recorded a full-fledged album, and unfortunately, I don't believe that she ever will. Which again, it's our loss, because if you out there, if you want to hear an artist that basically did whatever the hell she wanted to do and had the nerve and the guts to push ahead and do whatever she wanted to do, Dalbello is the artist for you. Again, I cannot say enough about her ability and her talent and her tenacity. That is the one word that I could use to describe Lisa Dalbello, is tenacity. She would do anything that she wanted to do, and she pushed ahead through stereotypes, through any preconceptions that anyone ever had of her, and she proved everybody wrong. So these albums that I mentioned, Human Forces, She, and Whore, along with the other ones I mentioned, are available to purchase. You can get them on Amazon. You can get them through eBay. You can get them through Discogs, possibly very cheap. So you have nothing to lose but possibly discovering a new talent, or not so new talent, but a new talent for you that I guarantee you will not be disappointed. So that brings me to the end of my first installment of Where Are They Now? Please hit like and subscribe. And please leave your comments down below. If you've heard of Dalbello, if you like Dalbello, if you do not like Dalbello, leave me your opinion. You know, uh, this is what I'm trying to do, is to create a dialogue between me and you and see where we go with it. And also click the notification bell to keep you on top of any new content that I've got coming out. And hopefully you liked what you've seen today. And I will be bringing you 2 more of these installments. And hopefully, again, you like what I'm bringing you. And let me know down below. Anyways, hoping you guys are having a great day and taking care of yourselves and one another. And we will see you soon. Bye for now.